Namaskar, and a very warm welcome to the second episode of InsPIRE Economic Edge, where we delve into the economic currents shaping India and the world. I'm your host, Debesh Roy, Chairman, Institute for Pioneering Insightful Research Private Limited, InsPIRE. InsPIRE is a research and consultancy firm dedicated to economic and climate change policies. Today, we'll conduct a review of India's economic performance in the fiscal year 24-25. Let's explore the data and uncover the narratives they reveal. India's economy is projected to grow by 6.4% in 24-25, according to the first advanced estimates of the National Statistical Office. While this represents a deceleration from the 8.2% growth recorded in the previous fiscal year, it underscores India's resilience amidst a challenging global environment. Over the past decade, from 15-16 to 24-25, India's real GDP registered a CAGR of 5%, with an uptick in growth in the post-pandemic recovery years, averaging 7.2% over the last 3 fiscal years. However, persistent headwinds, including global inflationary pressures, subdued private investment, and volatile external trade, have influenced India's moderated growth trajectory. Despite these challenges, India's strong economic fundamentals, including a vibrant consumer market, robust digital infrastructure, and proactive fiscal measures, provide optimism. Let's explore these dynamics in more detail. Let's begin with a sectoral breakdown to understand the drivers of India's growth in 24-25. The agriculture sector is projected to grow by 3.8%, marking a robust recovery from 1.4% growth recorded in the previous fiscal year. This resurgence is driven by above normal monsoon patterns, expanded irrigation coverage, and accelerated adoption of agri-tech solutions. Innovative practices like drone-based crop monitoring, precision farming, and climate-resilient crop varieties are increasingly contributing to enhanced productivity and efficiency. However, significant challenges remain. India's agricultural productivity still lags behind global benchmarks due to fragmented land holdings, inadequate market linkages, and inefficient supply chains. Additionally, post-harvest losses, limited value addition, and insufficient integration of farmers into global value chains hinder the sector's full potential. To achieve sustainable and globally competitive growth in agriculture, both the central and state governments must intensify collaboration. Comprehensive reforms are essential, including streamlined agri-marketing reforms, expanded access to credit and insurance, the scaling of digital agriculture platforms, and the promotion of farmer-producer organizations. Investments in infrastructure, such as modern cold storage, rural logistics, and warehousing, will also be crucial. By fostering an enabling ecosystem, these efforts can enhance farmers' income, boost exports of agri-commodities and value-added products, and make Indian agriculture more efficient, resilient, and profitable. The India's industrial sector is projected to grow by 6.2% in 24-25, marking a deceleration from 9.5% growth witnessed in the previous year. A closer look at the manufacturing subsector, which is expected to decline sharply from 9.9% in FY24 to 5.3%, reveals persistent challenges such as muted domestic demand, global supply chain disruptions, and sluggish growth in export-oriented industries. Rising input costs, including energy and raw materials, have further constrained profitability and output across key sectors like textiles, automotive, and electronics. Despite these hurdles, there are signs of resilience in emerging areas such as green manufacturing, electric vehicles, and pharmaceuticals, bolstered by targeted government initiatives like the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme. One critical area of concern remains job creation. Manufacturing, traditionally a significant source of employment, has struggled to absorb the rapidly growing labor force due to automation trends, weak private investment, and the slow pace of MSME growth. Addressing these gaps will require policy measures aimed at incentivizing labor-intensive sectors, easing regulatory burdens on MSMEs, and providing skill development programs to align workforce capabilities with industry demands. The construction sector, on the other hand, continues to be a bright spot, with an anticipated growth of 8.6%, albeit a decline from 9.9% in the previous year. This robust performance is largely driven by the government's infrastructure push, which encompasses transformative projects in transportation, energy, and urban development. The sector is not only a key contributor to GDP, but also one of the largest sources of employment, particularly for unskilled and semi-skilled workers. Initiatives like the PM Gati Shakti and affordable housing programs under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana have further bolstered demand, creating a ripple effect across related industries such as cement, steel, and logistics. To unlock the full potential of the industrial sector, it is essential to focus on boosting private investment through measures like expedited project approvals, enhanced access to credit, and tax incentives for capital expenditure. Equally critical is fostering greater integration of Indian manufacturers into global value chains by improving trade facilitation and forging strategic free trade agreements. The dual focus on infrastructure-led growth and manufacturing competitiveness can act as a catalyst for long-term economic expansion and large-scale employment generation. The services sector, backbone of India's economy, is projected to grow at 7.2% in FY25, slightly lower than 7.6% growth recorded last year. This sector, which contributes over 50% to the GDP, remains a critical driver of economic expansion and job creation. The sustained momentum in IT and technology-enabled services continues to be a standout performer, fueled by a robust global demand for outsourcing, cloud solutions, and digital transformation initiatives. Indian IT giants have benefited from increasing spending by global corporations on AI integration, cybersecurity, and automation, keeping the sector resilient despite broader economic uncertainties. Global capability centers are emerging as a significant growth driver for India. These centers, set up by multinational companies to manage functions like R&D, IT, finance, and supply chain, are tapping into India's vast, highly skilled talent pool. India's cost advantages, digital infrastructure, and expertise in fields like IT, engineering, and data analytics make it the preferred destination for GCCs. The expansion of GCCs is not only bolstering India's exports, but also creating jobs, particularly in high-value sectors such as technology, finance, and engineering. These centers are helping global firms innovate, optimize processes, and drive automation. As India continues to strengthen its position in the global supply chain, GCCs will play a crucial role in driving long-term sustainable growth, technological advancement, and job creation. However, other subsegments such as the trade, hotels, and transport, which are expected to grow at 5.8% compared to 6.4% last year, is experiencing headwinds. The slowdown can be attributed to subdued urban consumption, rising inflationary pressures that have impacted discretionary spending, and challenges in the travel and tourism industry. For example, the hospitality sector, which showed signs of recovery post-pandemic, is facing uneven demand, with domestic travel performing better than inbound international tourism. Transport and logistics, another critical subsegment, has been affected by high fuel costs and global trade disruptions. However, ongoing investments in logistics infrastructure, such as the dedicated freight corridors and multimodal logistics parks under the PM Gati Shakti initiative, are expected to boost efficiency and support medium-term growth. Public administration, defense, and other services remain robust, projected to grow at 9.1% compared to 7.8% in the previous fiscal year, driven by increased government spending on social welfare programs and infrastructure projects. Financial services and real estate are also showing promise with a growth of 7.3% compared to 8.4% in the previous year, mainly driven by rising credit offtake and a buoyant housing market, particularly in urban areas. To unlock the full potential of the services sector, India needs to address structural issues. Policies aimed at promoting urban consumption through targeted subsidies, tax relief for the middle class, and enhanced rural-urban connectivity can help stimulate demand in subsegments like trade and hospitality. Additionally, boosting investment in tourism infrastructure and marketing campaigns can reinvigorate the travel sector and attract more international visitors. The government and industry stakeholders should also work collaboratively to upskill the workforce, particularly in emerging areas like AI, blockchain, and fintech, ensuring India remains competitive in global outsourcing markets. Strengthening trade agreements to facilitate the export of services and encouraging innovation in high-growth areas such as EdTech and health tech will further enhance the sector's contribution to GDP. While challenges persist in certain subsegments, the services sector's resilience, supported by policy interventions and India's inherent strengths in IT and digital services, ensures it will continue to be a linchpin of the economy. Investment and consumption trends reveal a nuanced story for fiscal year 25. The gross fixed capital formation, a critical indicator of investment activity, is projected to grow by 6.4% in 24-25, marking a decline from the robust 9% growth achieved in the previous year. This slowdown reflects a combination of factors, including moderation in public capital expenditure, execution, and a cautious approach by private investors amid persistently high interest rates. Despite these challenges, certain sectors are emerging as key growth drivers. Investments in renewable energy projects driven by India's ambitious target of achieving 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030 continue to gain momentum. Similarly, the expansion of data centers fueled by increasing digitalization and the government's focus on creating a cloud-friendly ecosystem is attracting substantial capital inflows. The PLI scheme is also encouraging fresh investments in manufacturing, particularly in electronics, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, through their full impact, though their full impact is yet to materialize. However, broader private sector investment remains subdued, constrained by concerns over elevated borrowing costs and global economic uncertainties. Addressing these barriers through targeted policy interventions, such as lowering the cost of credit for MSMEs, ensuring faster project clearances, and expanding access to venture capital, will be vital for revitalizing investment sentiment and sustaining long-term growth. Private final consumption expenditure, a major driver of economic activity, is expected to grow by 7.3%, marking a strong recovery from the muted 4% growth seen in the previous year. This resurgence is underpinned by several positive developments. Improved agricultural output, bolstered by favorable monsoon, government schemes like PM Kisan have increased disposable income in rural areas, boosting demand for consumer goods and services. E-commerce penetration, due to rapid expansion of digital platforms and rising smartphone penetration, are transforming consumption patterns, particularly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, driving robust growth in online retail sales. The housing market continues to perform well, driven by government initiatives like the PMAY and rising urbanization. Increased construction activity and affordable housing schemes are supporting both urban and rural housing demand, stimulating associated sectors like cement, steel, and home appliances. In addition, government consumption expenditure growing at 4.1% from 2.5% provides critical support to overall demand. Increased allocation towards welfare programs, healthcare, and public infrastructure is not only improving the standard of living but also indirectly bolstering consumption by creating jobs and enhancing rural connectivity. Going forward, sustaining consumption growth will require addressing challenges like inflationary pressures and uneven income distribution. Policies aimed at bolstering disposable income, particularly among the middle class and lower income groups, and expanding social security nets will be essential to ensure broad-based demand recovery. Inflation remains a central concern for Indian policymakers as it indirectly impacts both economic stability and the purchasing power of households. In December 24, retail inflation moderated to 5.22%, its lowest level in 4 months, driven by a noticeable decline in food prices. While this deceleration offers some relief, inflation continues to remain above RBI's medium-term target of 4%, highlighting the need for continued vigilance. Food inflation, as measured by the Consumer Food Price Index, stood at 8.39% in December 2024, down from 9.04% in November. While this decline signals progress, food inflation remains elevated, largely driven by prices of vegetables, with inflation of 26.6%. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and fuel prices, remains persistently high, fueled by rising costs in essential services such as healthcare, education, and transport. These sectors, which constitute a significant portion of household expenditure, have seen inflationary pressures from wage growth, input cost, and supply chain disruptions. The ongoing increase in healthcare and education costs is particularly concerning as it strains the budgets of lower and middle income households, limiting their consumption capacity. To anchor inflation expectations and support household purchasing power, policymakers must focus on targeted interventions. These could include promoting productivity gains in key sectors, enhancing supply chain efficiencies, and addressing structural factors that lead to cost-push inflation. Additionally, maintaining a careful balance between monetary and fiscal policies will be crucial for controlling inflation without stifling growth. Given the global economic environment, continued efforts to manage inflation while ensuring macroeconomic stability will be paramount. India's external sector presents a nuanced picture with some positive trends alongside ongoing challenges. The current account deficit, which reflects the gap between the country's imports and exports, is projected to moderate to 1.6% of GDP in 24-25, compared to higher deficits in previous years. This improvement is largely driven by resilient remittances and strong growth in service exports, particularly in IT services, which have continued to see robust global demand. This resilience is testament to India's competitive edge in global outsourcing and digital services. However, there are persistent challenges. Merchandise exports have been hit by weak global demand, and particularly from advanced economies that are grappling with slower growth and trade disruptions. The volatile energy markets have also exacerbated India's import bills as crude oil prices remain highly unpredictable. This has put pressure on the country's trade balance, requiring close monitoring of energy price fluctuations and a focus on diversifying energy sources. India's external vulnerability could be further mitigated by increasing domestic production in key sectors and improving export competitiveness through structural reforms like enhancing logistics, reducing trade barriers, and boosting the Make in India initiative. Additionally, diversification of India's trade partners and exports into high demand global markets could reduce dependency on any single region, providing more stability in the external sector. On a more optimistic note, foreign direct investment inflows continues to demonstrate global confidence in India's long-term economic prospects, particularly in the manufacturing and renewable energy sectors. Despite global uncertainties, India remains an attractive destination for investment due to its large consumer market, growing middle class, and improving business climate. FDI in manufacturing, bolstered by government initiatives such as the PLI scheme, is helping boost domestic production capacities, particularly in high-tech industries like electronics, automotive, and textiles. This is crucial for India's push towards self-reliance and reducing its trade deficit. Similarly, India's push for a green energy transition has made the renewable energy sector another key area for FDI, with major international investors looking to tap into India's growing solar, wind, and battery storage markets. However, attracting more FDI will require continued efforts to improve the ease of doing business, address infrastructure bottlenecks, and enhance labor market flexibility. These steps, combined with policy stability and proactive measures to promote innovation, will help ensure that FDI continues to flow into high potential sectors supporting economic growth and employment creation. In response to the challenges posed by both domestic and global headwinds, the government has unveiled a series of measures aimed at sustaining economic growth and addressing structural bottlenecks. However, more targeted reforms and policy initiatives could unlock greater potential for the Indian economy. Let's examine some existing efforts and additional recommendations that can significantly boost growth prospects. To drive sustained economic growth, several uh, key sectors require strategic focus and reforms. The government has ramped up infrastructure spending through initiatives such as the Gati Shakti and National Infrastructure Pipeline. To build on this momentum, private sector participation should be enhanced via the PPPs, particularly in renewable energy, water supply, and urban infrastructure. Faster project implementation and addressing land acquisition challenges will be crucial. The PLI has already driven investment in critical sectors. The scheme should be expanded to emerging industries like electric vehicles, battery storage, and semiconductors. Moreover, improving ease of doing business for MSMEs, simplifying compliance, and offering fiscal incentives for tech adoption can further boost the sector. For revitalizing agriculture, the government's focus on diversification, precision farming, and agri-tech innovation through initiatives like the National Mission on Edible Oils is a positive step. To further advance, a National Agri Innovation Fund should be introduced to support startups in sustainable farming and post-harvest technologies, strengthening FPOs and promoting organic farming incentives will also help increase exports of high-value agricultural products. For enhancing workforce productivity and skills, programs like Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana have contributed to skill development. To keep pace with future demands, a national workforce reskilling program should be established, focusing on emerging skills in AI, robotics, and green technologies. Expanding Apprenticeship programs and rural skill training centers will also foster non-farm employment and in rural and semi-urban areas. Deepening financial inclusion has been transformed by the JAM Trinity and UPI to further financial inclusion, strengthening regional rural banks, rural cooperatives, and microfinance institutions, and promoting affordable credit in underserved sectors is essential. Innovative financial products like agriculture insurance and broader coverage will also benefit MSMEs and the rural sectors. For promoting green growth and sustainability, India's commitment to achieving 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030 sets a strong foundation. Introducing a green investment tax credit can attract investments in renewable energy, while carbon market policies and expanding EV adoption, particularly in rural areas, can accelerate sustainability efforts. It is imperative to boost exports and trade competitiveness to increase India's exports to $2 trillion by 2030, establishing special economic zones dedicated to sectors like electronics and pharmaceuticals, improving trade infrastructure, and diversifying export markets through new FTAs will enhance India's global trade competitiveness. Efforts to monetize non-core public assets and privatize select PSUs are underway. Expediting privatization of PSUs and PSBs, focusing on performance benchmarking, will improve efficiency and attract Indian and global investors. Fostering research, innovation, and entrepreneurship through initiatives like Startup India have propelled India's startup ecosystem to further boost innovation, increasing R&D spending to 2% of GDP and creating sector-specific incubation hubs for biotechnology, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing is crucial. Reforming governance and judicial processes is long overdue. Fast-tracking judicial reforms, simplifying labor laws to align with global standards, and strengthening anti-corruption frameworks will help build investor confidence and attract foreign investments. These reforms, if implemented efficiently, can play a transformative role in driving India's economic growth and development. The IMF's January 2025 World Economic Outlook update highlights a global economy marked by modest growth of 3.3% in both 25 and 26, diverging trends and significant uncertainties. The World Bank's Global Economic Prospects January 25 report projects lower global growth at 2.7% for 2025 and 2026, a modest recovery after years of compounded shocks, including pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and supply chain disruptions. Despite easing inflationary pressures and a shift towards monetary easing in major economies, global growth remains modest. This reflects the enduring impact of recent crises and structural slowdowns in trade and investment. Amid this subdued outlook, India stands out as a beacon of resilience. Both the IMF and the World Bank project India's economic growth at 6.5% for 24-25, underscoring its pivotal role in driving global momentum. Notably, while IMF maintains its 6.5% growth projection for India in 25-26, the World Bank has revised the forecast upward to 6.7% for 25-26, reinforcing optimism about India's sustained economic strength. Yet challenges like geopolitical tensions and global financial uncertainties loom large. Strengthened multilateral cooperation and domestic structural reforms are crucial for sustaining India's growth trajectory in a turbulent global environment. While India faces persistent challenges, its underlying strengths, ranging from a resilient services sector to robust domestic consumption, provide a solid foundation for growth. Together, proactive policies, private sector dynamism, Higher government and private sector investments and global collaboration will define India's journey forward. Thank you for watching this episode of Inspire Economic Edge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful analyses. Together, let's envision a better economic future. Namaskar.